Welcome to Magic Club. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Jordan Gould.
Hey.
And Marcus Eddy.
What's up?
So, Marcus, I'm thrilled you could be here. Marcus is kind of an awesome guy. Marcus is a brilliant performer, great creator, super cool guy, and he's actually in the middle of doing a lecture tour right now called The
Create Tour.
Great Tour.
The Creator. Bars.
So people
Bars.
would go to, what's your website?
You can go to marcuseddy.com and just check it out. You can see where I'll be. I'll be in Canada in a couple weeks. So
Nice.
The Create Tour continues there. I got 3 dates there, and we're going to keep it going. Keep the ball rolling.
Eddy is in IE.com.
MarcusedDie.
All right. So you can find out about...
.com.
And Marcus, that's a nice looking website you got there.
Nice. Man, I had the kindest, most gentlest soul help me with that.
We'll see.
He was great.
Listen, if you want to do Squarespace, I recommend it. If you want something up and running, just have a lot of images ready. Have a lot of images in a folder, and your life is so much easier. If you sit there and you open it up with no images, you're like...
Yeah, it's a daunting task. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm still learning, and I'm still improving the website as I go. But
but you've got a lot of information. It's good. It's doing what you need. And Marcus, you've got a brand new trick out. So Marcus has, he's taken an effect that he's done before, improved, and has a new version of this out there. Tell us about this.
Yes. So I have a new effect called Reload, and it is my take on the concept of making a deck appear inside of an empty card box. So I played with this a few different times. This is my third version of this. First was empty, then it was loaded, and now reload. So I'm super excited with this. I fixed a lot of things that I really wanted to fix in the original version, and I was actually able to create some of the ideas that I had originally that I couldn't do at the time. And so this is the culmination of all that.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. And there's a link to that on marcuseddy.com?
So you can go to marcuseddy.com/themagicdesign. And then it'll have, there's only a couple products up there right now, but it'll have my full store of products on there soon. But right now, Reload is on there at a discount, so go check it out.
So, We've talked about this before on our Facebook Live and maybe on a version of this show that got lost with some sort of Skype error. But you have a very amazing background. You started as a magician and a creator, and you're a great example of somebody who, you're in the middle of Texas. You're shipped around Air Force brat, right? And you went on to become a well-known magician, well-known creator, work for David Blaine, and that on your own steam. You're a guy that just started creating and created until people noticed what you were doing.
No, it's great to hear. It's great to hear you say that, actually, because there's a lot of times I don't think I'm always working on the next thing, and so I don't take time to reflect on all the things that I've done. I'm one of those people who. I'm always trying to get the next thing, the next big thing where I'm starting to now kind of pace myself and realize all the incredible things incredible opportunities I've had in my life in this crazy journey. And it's kind of sit with that for a while as opposed to just kind of doing it, forgetting it, and then going to the next thing. Now I'm just trying to sit and marinate in this thing we call magic.
And I think something that the three of us have in common as magic creators is that, and we talked about this before, is that people go, where do your ideas come from? We're always trying to come up with ideas. It's not like, we don't think about magic or storytelling or whatever for 23 hours and 30 minutes of the day. And we're like, oh, time for an idea. Got it. Done. Now back to whatever. It's every waking moment. And I think if an average person spent the same amount of time thinking about this stuff, I know they'd be as productive as I was because, the compartment for being a normal person's wasted thinking about books and magic ideas.
Yeah, and I'm always looking at anything I'm looking at, any kind of object that's near me. I'm always trying to figure out something to do with magic, and so my brain it never stops. It's like it was programmed in order to receive and to share magic.
And when you start working with other people,
it's so dramatic.
And like Jordan and I hang out, we start playing around with stuff. Stuff gets even better and better, and the three of us have hung out and worked on stuff. And then working with Danny Garcia and Blaine's team, change your thinking.
100%. So I had before I was with the team, I and I still do have a lot of these crazy, wacky ideas. Yes, I learned from books like Tarbell and Paul Harris and stuff like that. But the way that I think is intentionally off the wall. Is intentionally offbeat, just to kind of throw everybody off. I see where a trend is going, and then I try to think of something like totally opposite on purpose. And my brain has just been since I've been doing it all these years. My brain has been programmed that way. And then when I joined the Blaine team and actually got to work with like-minded individuals and more brilliant minds than I can ever be, is when I learned new techniques, and then it allows me to go back to my old ideas where I couldn't figure out a way or figure out something to do with, and then working with them and learning new techniques allows me to take these old ideas now. I'm like, oh, this is how you do that. This is how you do that, and now I'm starting to pair things outside of Magic in order to make my Magic better. So for instance, I was hanging out with Andrew in February, and just going to you had a talk at UCLA. I believe it was, and hearing the process of a story writer allowed me to look at my own Magic, and this is before I had to perform at the castle. Literally, like going to that, I changed some of my script before I went to the castle. It was like days before I had to go to the castle, and I changed my script in order to make it more, make my stories more compelling and stuff like that. And so it's something I'm still working on. I do like to write, but not in the extent that you write, Andrew, and I'm starting to learn the process of there you go of storytelling, because I think storytelling is what I think I wasn't missing it before, but now I'm focusing. I'm more aware on the storytelling just to make the Magic more powerful, I think.
Yeah, sometimes that door is there, and you're like, okay, I need to go through that door more, but I know it's there and it's part of it. I'm very much in awe of your creativity, and Jordan and I are lucky because here we're out in LA, and we can I growing up in South Florida, I knew Rand Woodbury as an illusionist, and so I had a lot of help. Amazing Randy, I had help. I had people who were I made my name, I think, in Magic kind of. Took my own creativity, but I was lucky that I knew people, and you and I think like Blake are a great example. Blake Voigt are just great examples of guys who are just in the middle of nowhere, but like I'm gonna create, and you're gonna get noticed, and you did.
Yeah, I like to create, and I guess my style would be, how would I want this to look like? So if you were to give me a challenge, hey Marcus, could you make a pencil disappear? Okay, yeah, I can do that. But how would I want it to look? And then I start to go from there. And so, kind of, being away from a lot of magicians, I am kind of sheltered. I am in my own thoughts, my own imagination. So I think that's why I also have a lot of different unique methods and concepts, because I'm not going to Magic clubs every week. I'm not, I'm literally kind of in seclusion. However, good and bad of that is well, the good is that I get a lot of original thoughts. The bad is that some of those original thoughts are not original as I thought they were. So of course we always run into that.
So Jordan, do you sit there and do you just say, I'm going to come up with rubber band magic? I mean, so Marcus seems to play with stuff. But let's go both. Everybody can take their chance chance to answer this. Like Jordan, let's start with you. Do you sit there and say, "Hey, I want to come up with rubber band magic this week, and that's all I'm going to work on"? Or are you open to other things?
First of all, I sit around with a bunch of stuff, and I kind of just let my brain and hands wander. Like sometimes I really feel like I want to pick up a deck of cards and play with it. Like right now, I happen to have a bunch of rubber bands underneath the table. And it's a combination of like fiddling around, like a lot of times you play with stuff that you know. I mean, it starts with a library of what you already know, and then so sometimes I find that if I start consuming Magic that I haven't looked into before, like I'll go to the Magic Castle library, which is fortunately for us in LA, we have this crazy resource. And I'll just start opening books, and I'll go into the computer and try and find stuff. And then I'll see something that's like, oh, there's a new idea or concept. And then I'll start sort of playing with that. And these ideas will like branch out into new things. But it doesn't just start with like, what should I do? Oh, I have an idea. It has to just be like, what's happening here, And then all of a sudden something will evolve out of that.
Marcus?
A lot of that, as well as I don't like to look into magic to create magic. So, for instance, I'm not going into Tarbell to not necessarily. If I want to create something original, I'm not going into Tarbell to look at old effects to create something new. And so, I like to look outside of magic. I'm either watching a movie, I'll either get inspiration from a song, just something outside of magic to make it. To try to create a concept that maybe has not been explored yet. I like that aspect. And then if I see something and get inspired by something, then I'm like, oh, wait, I think that was something. There's something about that in Tarbell. Then I go to Tarbell and look at it. But if not, then, it allows my brain to go free. And also, whenever I'm creating, like I said, I first want to come up with what I want the thing to look like. So if I first come up with something and figure out what I want it to look like, then I can go from there. I'm not physically touching the items yet. I'm just kind of marinating in my head. Well, how do I want this to look in my hands and on stage? Like, what is the emotion I want to invoke? And then only then, when I have a concept and maybe a little bit of a method, is when I'll start picking up objects and start playing with it, stuff like that. So there you go.
That's a very interesting. And I've realized time and again that I'll have a great idea in my head, but until I play with things, I'll go like, "Oh, that'll never work. That's too angly."
Exactly. Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah, there was the great Harbin story. Robert Harbin had an idea for a box. He's like, "What if I paint the bottom of the box to look like, or paint, make it a box, just paint it like it looks like the bottom of the box?" And he goes to show the neighbor woman, and she's like, "It looks like it's painted," because in his mind, he was just thinking one point of view straight on, and not realizing that if you're from here, this other angle,
right,
it won't work. Which would seem obvious, but this guy invented a zigzag. I didn't, so what do I know?
It's hard to make stuff in a vacuum. Like you can play around and come up with ideas, but I find a lot of stuff. It's very rare that I'm like, this is great. This is the best thing ever. I usually have to show it to somebody else and then kind of do that weird thing where you go, what do you think? And especially magic is such a strange thing because I've come to learn how to recognize if people are fooled without them letting me know. Like if I do a really good trick, people won't say, "Oh my God, you fooled me. That's a winner. Put that out." It's more like,
Yeah, they're past the emotion of being they're fooled. They're into the whole their brain hurts.
They get lost. Yeah, you can tell when somebody's like brain short circuits and they're kind of fried, and that's when I'm like, okay, I think I fooled them, but there's like so much self-doubt of like, oh, I hope it's good. I don't know.
So is that a moment that you try to look for, Jordan? Is that, you look for that moment where you're like, oh, I got him, or what is it you're actually looking for?
I think anything that's a reaction other than boredom. If something's bad and people are like, well, whatever. Like if people are indifferent, then it's not good. But any other thing than that is a good reaction. I just think that it takes a while to be okay with like quiet reactions, because we're so used to like, what? No way, David Blaine, street magic. Like that's not how people react when they are actually destroyed by something,
I actually don't. I don't look for those reactions at all. Like oh my God, I much prefer those silent.
Yeah,
going
those
on
are
moments.
Great TV.
Yeah, I really love those.
Those are great TV reactions. There's a reason you see them, because on TV you choose for and you select for that because you want that kind of reaction.
Marcus, earlier we were talking about a new rubber band thing I'm kind of floating around and working on, and I had an opportunity to hang out with David Williamson in Dallas because he was doing 1903 Circus 1903 over there.
That was a great show, by the way.
It was an awesome show, and he's so good in it, and we can talk about that too. And I showed him this rubber band trick, and his reaction was, that looked better than I thought it was going to. And for me, it's like, oh, it's so good, But that's, everyone else is like, is that a good thing? I don't know, But I knew that as soon as he saw rubber band, he was just like, that's right, and whatever. And that wasn't the way that he felt about it after he saw it. So
good. Wow, man.
So let's change tack here. Actually, what I want to talk about today is the future of entertainment and maybe magic. Apple had their Worldwide Developers Conference, and that's where they unveil the technology underpinning the latest developments in their operating systems. It's for software developers primarily, and they'll unveil some products, but it's not a consumer-facing show like they do later in the year where they show the new iPhones. And among the new features they're coming out with, what was pretty interesting, I thought, was one is they showed on the Mac support for VR with their own game engine. They're going to support, basically the Steam system VR, building that into support Unreal and Unity, these game engines, which are the top engines that are for development, are going to have support for that. And then for the iPhone, and they showed a thing called ARKit. And what ARKit is, when you program something, when you make a program for an iPhone, is you want to be able to tap into native resources that are already there, like the camera. If you want to record something, you don't want to write your own program to how to capture an image, how to do this. You just want to be able to say, get video, do this. And that makes things faster and easier. So ARKit is software that's built into the next generation of iOS that will allow you to do augmented reality stuff. And we've seen some forms of that, where you hold your phone in front of a card and you aim it and you see the little character stand on top of there because the camera sees that and the processor knows that's what that plane, that object is. This software doesn't need you to hold any sort of symbols or tracking markers in front of it. You aim it at a table and it says, okay, that's a table. It figures out the lighting. They did, I don't know if you saw the demo for this, but they had Peter Jackson's has his own VR augmented reality game studio, and they showed a demo where they had a table, they pulled out an iPad, and again, we've seen stuff like this from Google, but it used more hardware. This was using off-the-shelf iPads and iPhones. They pull it out, aim it at the table, and it gets, all of a sudden, they make an entire like mini Western futuristic town appear, and people walking around, and aliens show up, and there's a gunfight and battles and all this. As you look at this, and you look and you see people standing around you beyond. And it's an augmented reality demo like we've seen before, but the cool thing was it was just using a standard iPad. No additional hardware, nothing. It was just this new generation of software. As entertainers, I'm watching this thinking about my friends who love to play. AR is going to be big, but I think one of the really cool applications for this is tabletop games. And the idea that, a lot of people love to get and sit there and now you'll sit in front of your tabletop game, and kind of the promise that Microsoft HoloLens had, but you could sit there and say, okay, let's have a tabletop game where we have our board, or maybe it's all virtual and we're going to have our little figures walk around and fight each other, or we can get up and sword fight in augmented reality. And I was thinking about, in Magic, we've seen Marco Tempest do some really cool stuff with augmented reality or forms of that. And I kind of think there's a point at which, no, the Magic isn't the technology, but that is part of the storytelling. That the idea that if you're experiencing this, you could do a thing like, let's sit here, and now all of a sudden I'm going to tell you the history of Magic, and you're going to watch little things run across there, and now you can put down the screens and I'll show you a little miracle. Now put on the screen and we'll even do another one.
So we're going to do next week's Magic Club and record in 360, and you can visit the virtual Magic Castle and walk in and
that would be awesome.
Final Cut Pro is going to support 360 video, by the way.
Wow.
So
Mark Ducati put out a Magic set using a version of, it was sort of like alternate reality meets Pepper's Ghost sort of thing, where you would put your phone into this cardboard box that was the Magic Theater, and it had a Pepper's Ghost built in that would reflect the digital projections that your phone was coming up with. So there was like a classic drawer box where the thing disappears inside the box. Yeah. But then there were these little plastic bats, and the bats go in the drawer. And then you put it in front of the screen, and then digital bats fly away, and you open the drawer, and the real bats are gone. And it was all using, any borrowed phone.
I have it somewhere.
Just a piece of cardboard and like classic Magic stuff. So he found a way to create this like sort of super hip new way to interact with this technology using old techniques and stuff that's pretty much cheap and available without going.
This is brand new, or is it?
No, it came out
a couple of years ago, but yeah.
It
was just a really good example of like being creative. You can take all these things that already exist and put them together and make something that's new and seems like super fresh, but isn't advanced technology.
Nice.
Yeah, I think that you certainly have at one end of it, you have people who are super into tech who come up with some of the stuff, but then the tools become easier to use, and you start thinking about we all have the ability now to do tricks with Instagram and messaging and stuff like that, and you can do simple sort of video stuff, and I just think that I was looking at this as just sort of a storytelling tool of where when you don't want to make it a full experience, but it can be a really kind of a cool enhanced experience, and it's another element. And looking at the pioneers of film were magicians, and I think some of the pioneers in virtual reality and augmented reality will probably be magicians, because we think a lot about how to get so much more. We can make you think we can read your mind using a deck of cards. We can make you think you've had a lot of choices when you've had a narrow group of choices, and we can get a lot out of it. What amazed me was when computer stuff first came out, and I started thinking about what would be what would a cool magic trick to put online, and I thought of the princess card trick, right? The look at one card, I'm going to take one away, whatever, and then I said, nah, it's too obvious. It's too obvious, right? And I dismissed it. I was working for James Randi. And those of you who don't know, that's the trick where they show you 5 cards, think of one, and then I'm going to shuffle them up, and the screen changes. Next thing you know, they're flipped over, and one card goes away, and they turn over, and your card's gone. That's ostensibly. I was working with Randy, and we got an email from a guy who was a psychologist who asked Randy, "Could you explain this trick?" And Randy's like, "You got to handle this." I'm like, "What?" I'm like, he's like, "Can you explain this trick?" I'm like, "It's simple." Psychology is I'm a PhD in psychology. I think I would understand a psychological trick if I saw this. And I'm like, I don't want to ruin this for you.
Right.
He's like, stop being coy with me. Blah. He was just angry. He was very, very angry that I would not explain this trick to him. And I'm kind of like, well, now I'm not. I will lead you to it because it's going to make it all the more. And he's like, I know this sort of thing. You're kind of being arrogant or whatever. I'm like, dude, I don't want to ruin the effect for you. I don't want to ruin the experience for you. But understand, we can be fooled. And he was just angry, and I'm like, told him, do X next time you do this.
Nice.
And the next email, I feel like the biggest idiot. Yeah, and you were a jerk. You were a jerk, because it was this guy, I would know. No, you wouldn't, And that my arrogance was everybody would see through this. No.
Crazy, right? Right.
And
that's why doing magic for smart people, or just smarter people is sometimes you can fool them because they get down on these trains of thoughts that are just super outlandish. Because for us, here's a super simple technique, and I can make it seem like I'm reading your mind, and all of that is just the story of how you're presenting it. And they're sitting there going so you must have a hidden camera, obviously a hidden camera that can track your facial features. So you're watching my eyebrows, and it's like, dude, what? The fact that they think that that's possible, and I could program that to, and I don't know, Andrew, have you ever had people come forward with some crazy method like that where they're like, yeah, I figured out a way you could read minds by looking at expressions, and you're do this simple
get that. You get that all the time, and I think that there's been some research into sort of the magic of neurology or neuroscience and magic, and I think that a lot of it's been kind of, I want to say, a lot of it's been bottling, new bottles and old wine or whatever. It's been no, these discoveries were known in psychology under different names. And I've saw a couple examples of look at this, and I'm like, that was actually something Aristotle described, and we've known this. It's great that you wrote a paper and you're putting your name on it, I've gone to conferences, and sometimes it's driven me nuts where I watch people go I like to call it this effect. Afterwards, well, what about this? Well, that's, and it's oh, you didn't know when you started this, and you're so committed now to calling it your thing. And anyhow, I think that but I was going to say that I think that there are some simple mechanics of an example of that would be the jester pitch. If something appears to, and you watch this object get tossed from here to here, and then meanwhile another object is going behind there, you do not see it. If you don't know what that is, you do not see it because your brain is incapable of seeing it unless you know where you're supposed to focus. And I think some magic like that is that princess card thing, and all are examples of your brain wipes that cache. It moves on unless there's something that calls attention to that. And that's why when really good misdirection works, it's it's bulletproof if you don't know what's going on.
I was working. Sorry, go ahead.
It's crazy what you're saying, Jordan, about people coming up with these outlandish methods and whatnot. And I'm thinking, as creators, we're all creators. That's usually how I would start to come up with an idea. Like back in the day, I would come up with the most outlandish thing. If I saw Copperfield do an illusion on TV as a kid, I'm like, okay, well, this is how he did it, and my method is obviously not the correct method. But from that point on, that branches off into something that could be obviously real, And so I like the idea of embracing those weird ideas. If someone comes to me, it's like, oh, okay, I know how you did it. You did this, this, and this. I'll listen to them, and if I can pull something from that, I'm like, yeah, okay, gotcha, and create something brand new from that.
All right, so real fast, I'm going to set this up. Marcus's place is haunted by,
I'm sorry.
It's a ghost.
I know. It's crazy.
Real fast, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to explain, okay, here's the technology. Everybody going into your audience is going to have glasses, augmented reality glasses they can put on, or they can take out their phone, and you can sit in front of you. We're going to be in the Magic Castle close-up room, okay? Let's figure out what you can do using that technology. And I'm going to suggest my way to do it is, obviously, I think that, we want to... Mind reading is great because you can say, no matter what I control in that window, I can't I can't use it to fake, what you're thinking. Okay. So mentalism is kind of cool. And you could do some sort of card revelation where somebody's just thinking of a card or thinking of an object. So mentalism is totally cool and on the table because mentalism, people aren't going to assume. They might think it's trickery. And even if it's just really well done close up. So you could do some sort of cool mentalism. Maybe I could do it environmental sort of thing where it's like, okay, let's make this, let's turn down the lights a little bit. I'm going to put some flaming sconces on the wall. I'm going to take you on a little tour through magic, and we're going to start in ancient Egypt. And there's going to be hieroglyphs on the wall, and you're going to see, what looks like an Egyptian temple setting around as I explain things. You can even use augmented reality to put like a headdress or something, like an appropriate Egyptian headdress. And then shift through time. So I could use it for atmospheric stuff. Like all of a sudden I could do set design and things like that using augmented reality. So maybe I could do a history of magic kind of story there.
What if you did something like, is it the Hoyle test? Where they, it's not Hoyle test. It's where you're naming one object that everybody has, and then if I'm going to name this, 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 and this. If I named your whatever, sit down. Yeah. That so what if you did that to where, if everybody's bringing virtual reality or augmented reality glasses, everybody maybe have a different feed, and so you have 3 boxes on the stage, nothing's under it, but when you lift it up, their glasses are reading whatever object it should be there, right? So as you're lifting up these 3 objects, everybody is apparently seeing 3 different things, but they're all. You see what I'm saying? You see what I'm trying to get at?
So you're actually thinking about how to use it. That is an ingenious way of how to use it actually for a method, but a method people may not realize, because you could say, like, I want everybody like, a circus animal or something like that, Mm-hmm. And then, you could have it, open up your hands and there's an elephant, but other people see a giraffe and other people see this sort of thing. And
or they see their animal that they're only thinking of.
Yeah, and then you could be like, and you could have thought of da-da-da, and you could sort of wipe their memory on, because afterwards, like, oh, yeah, when he made the elephant, yeah, the giraffe, we saw them all kind of thing.
So, yeah.
I think I'd wear a green screen suit, and then everyone can just see me wearing the best version of whatever suit that they want me to be in. So it's like, oh, look at that nice Gucci suit. Oh, I thought it was Prada. I was like, oh, it's $5.
Yeah. I think that you could, there was a great Marco Tempest talk where he did some cool stuff with this stuff.
I think, one of the most interesting ways to look at magic through technology recently has been the Zach King videos. And everyone's familiar with Zach King, but if you're not, go look him up. He's amazing. But what's interesting is that it's not magic in the sense that we know it's video tricks. Like, we know it's video editing of some kind, and we know that that's a thing, and camera tricks are a thing. But we don't really know how he's getting away with a lot of these things. And it's the way that he's taking something that we know how it works and then manipulating it in a way that doesn't make sense with our understanding of it, that creates magic. That's kind of what we do in real life with real things. Like it's like rubber band magic. Everyone knows how a rubber band works. Yet we found ways to make them behave outside of what everyone's expectations are. So I think that moving forward with technology, if you just understand how everyone interacts with it, and then you can find ways to sort of twist that around, then you're creating magic essentially. So if I walk into a room and I make a hologram of an apple appear, right now in an empty room, that would be amazing because people wouldn't know what that was. They would think it was maybe some sort of futuristic technology I've figured out. But if everyone's got glasses on and the same effect happens, everyone's like, yeah, we're just seeing the digital apple. That's not magic. So you have to find a way to shift that a little bit.
So yeah, and I think there's what I like is we have 3 different kind of examples, which I love. And so you're thinking about like the idea of the apple. My mind went to like, yeah, you could be like, hey, apple, be like, yeah, that's cool. We've seen it, and you throw it at somebody and it hits them.
Right?
As a magician, like, oh, I can go from virtual to I know if I do a back, I know where I can grab the real apple. They won't know that, and then now they won't know where it started and ended, and that becomes an entertaining bit. So you could do that. Foomp, it's real. No, really, it's real. Kind of thing, and that's a fun way.
What'd be great is if you go through the apple and it hits everyone, and the audience gets hit with an apple. So you have these
that's pretty awesome.
Built into the chairs, and everyone gets hit in the chest, and they're holding an apple now.
Yeah.
Like a Disney thing. That's funny. Yeah. I was actually thinking of if someone was looking at, for instance, if we're all looking at a augmented reality car on stage, like it literally forms, computer-esque, and you walk in throughout it and everything like that, and all of a sudden you open the door and you get in, and then you drive off the stage or something like that, to where everybody's seeing this object that they know is fake, and you're walking through it, and they know it's created within their glasses, but then it's real. That's pretty awesome.
And that's kind of like basically movies to life. We're using augmented reality, and I think that's and that's a 100-year-old effect where they Gertie the dinosaur and feed it. And so I love the idea. Like, that's crazy. That's the beauty of it. That there's an existing thing that's worked really well before, where we have the video screen, you pull things in and out, and now talking about an augmented reality thing where you just start, when is it real, when is it not, and then the fact that you can take a real object they know is real and switch it for virtual, and they don't know that it's virtual. And do cool stuff. And again, there are people like, it's going to ruin magic. It's another, magic's big. Magic is, there can be a place to do this, then there can be a place like, I'm just going to walk into a room with a deck of cards and do magic.
Well, and if you look at, all the way back to early movies and Méliès and camera tricks, like they were doing the same thing. They just figured out a way to manipulate the technology to create something that changed expectations, so they were using forced perspective and all sorts of things and clever editing, but people didn't know what those were clever tricks. And the same type of stuff is, as technology progresses, those techniques progress, and it's still that same sort of like dynamic where people are learning stuff and you're always just one ahead of a couple steps of whatever everyone knows is possible. And it doesn't even have to be advances in technology. It can just be creative solutions to those sort of problems you're trying to figure out.
Yeah, one of the things there's been a lot of development of trying to, like, how do you capture and do things in VR and a VR experience where you put on your goggles and you're in that other place. And we had Rico was on the show and talked about David wanting to shoot in 4K, or Blaine doing 4K and all that. And I love the idea of, imagine being able to watch something like a David Blaine special or something like that in augmented reality, where what you're seeing is him standing in your living room doing his magic for, fooling Pharrell or whatever like that, and watching it. And they shot it in they shot at their house, they shot at green screen, or the back of it becomes this thing. But instead of putting on the helmet, it's augmented reality, where that's because it's in my real space. And I will tell you, one of the most amazing experiences I ever had with playing around with VR tech was I had a Google Cardboard. I had an Android phone just to do that, and I had a thing on my head, and I was looking around, and then I clicked through something. The next thing you know, I'm just looking at my living room, and I'm like, oh, I guess I just clicked on the camera, and I'm looking around my living room, and then I look down, and my legs are gone. and my knees just faded into nothingness. I'm like, ah! And
Wow.
I had accidentally clicked into, I had made a photo, a 360-degree photograph beforehand, standing in that same exact spot.
Wow.
Forgot about it, somehow clicked into that photograph, and so I'm here like, oh, I guess I'm in video mode. Oh, okay, this is kind of cool. And I'm like, what's going to happen? And I looked down, I'm like, ah! And it was just fooled myself. Totally fooled myself. But it was more powerful
awesome.
because it was my thing. And then that gave me an idea, and this is a trick. I never told anybody about this, and it was my little AR trick. And what it was is I would do this when I was in my room, my apartment. I'd say, oh, I want to see something really cool. Like, yeah. So I'd say having the Google VR thing, and then like I would say, I'm just going to stand behind you. Now you're just in the regular camera mode, and you can just see. And so they're, oh, okay, it's kind of cool, you know. I'd say something like, oh, it's going to look for some object or whatever. And then they would look around, and they'd look up and go, ah, because it was actually a photo. And what I did is I figured out how to make an alien xenomorph appear on the ceiling.
Wow.
And so you're just looking around, and you see this thing looking up at you.
That's pretty awesome.
So that was my fun.
It's like a new version of the web trick, right? So you go in,
oh, nice, yeah, nice.
See a giant spider on the floor, and you're like, oh, that's freaky, and then you take it down. There's a real giant spider, and it comes and attacks you.
Be in my xenomorph costume.
Yeah.
So Marcus, what we do after Magic Club, the real work begins, and we have what's called the secret session. And I've had a deck of cards almost nonstop in my hands because one of our previous sessions we worked on the pass, and it was actually extremely helpful for me. And then Jordan showed us his top palm, which sometimes still works for me. We've had a lot of fun with that. So we're gonna pull you into the secret session.
Woo!
And we're gonna see.
By the
what
way,
you
Andrew,
got.
I figured out a trick for the pass. If you do it behind the microphone as
Okay,
you're
all right.
Nice.
Okay.
See,
What?
I just did it. I know you can't. Just
Wait.
did it again.
If I do it
Well,
behind the microphone, I
yo.
can just.
Yo. You know what? I'm about to try this, guys. I'm about to try this. This is my microphone right here. Can you see it? You can see. Oh, you can see behind. You can see. You can totally see that.
It's great with the microphone. Yeah.
It's big. It's good. It's
You can
gonna
totally
work.
see
I can tell.
it.
All right. So do we know what we have planned for the secret session, or is it gonna be a secret? What do we want to do?
I'm gonna share some band stuff. Some band work.
Nice.
How convenient! I happen to have some
Indeed.
bands, including
I think we've got two of them.
Marcus Eddie Green right there.
What? Boom! Eddie Greens.
Two of the
man.
best band guys I know are going to be here. So awesome. So that's what we're going to learn there. Rubber Band Magic's awesome. I think that there's kind of like the trinity of close-up is cards, coins, rubber bands.
Boom! You better come on.
Yep.
There you go.
Man, thank you so much, MarcusEddie.com.
Yes. Boom.
Yeah, and he's also on Instagram. You can follow him. He's going to be touring, lecturing. If you want to have him come near you, let him know. So
Let me know. I'll be there.
sweet.
Awesome.
All right, Jordan, you have the gavel.
Invisible gavel.
Boom.
Ow.
Sorry.